here's a picture of Steve Sims. So when I met him on that first podcast, what he had was this little, let me see if I can move it here. This little area right here.
Flatter upper lip.
Yeah, but he used to grow that over where you couldn't see that. And so that's when I told him the first time I met him, like, Steve, you need to trim this so that we can see that upper lip. And he's like, why? I'm like, because if not, you're seen as less approachable. But every single thing about these are how I got to know Steve. So for anybody who knows him, he had this big goatee they always had. Well, goatees are chin extenders, telling people like, I can handle a lot of adversity. That's exactly what Steve was. But Steve also had high ears and low eyebrows. So what that tells you about people is those are people who can process information very quick. And so to your point, the reason that Steve wanted people to only throw one thing at him is he wanted to solve. So when you got to know all these things, you got to know rounded forehead is outside the box thinkers. So you can't tell Steve exactly what he has to do. You just give him guardrails. He had high ears and low brows, so he understands things very fast. He's probably going to interrupt you. It's not to be rude. It's he got it. He wants to get you there.
The processing thing.
Yes.
As I interrupt you, sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, you're great. He had recessed eyes. And so for anybody who really knows Steve, he was a big introvert. You would never know it from him being on stage, but he would get off stage and either beeline for the bar or for somewhere else, to get away from people. And that's the hardest thing as a speaker is when people see you, then they want to come up and talk to you. And I had to play like his bouncer, his bodyguard at several events because people would rush him afterwards. And I'd just say, oh, hey, Steve, don't we need to go this area? And he'd be like, thank you for saving me. Because people think when you're on stage that you're automatically an extrovert. Like I'm an ambivert. I start off slow like an introvert. And then once I'm there, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. Like I get off stage and people are like, will you tell me what my face is? I'm like, absolutely. And I love doing it. But when Steve gets off stage, don't talk to Steve. Like he's got to decompress. And before he would go on stage, he'd have his ear pods in and he'd listen to Pearl Jam for 20 minutes before he went on stage because he couldn't talk to people. He had to get in that zone to go do that performance. And we talked earlier about Genius Network. Joe is the same way. Joe Polish is an introvert, but you never know it because we see people on stage and assume that they're all outgoing.
Yeah. So when you prepared for this, what were some of the things that stood out as you pulled up my social media or my facial connectivity?
So several things. When you raise your eyebrows up, and so for people, go ahead and raise your eyebrows up. So you have those deep lines across here, which is deep, intense study. So I know that you know your shit in a variety of things. So when I see somebody that's got the really deep Einstein lines, like you just had that go from left to the right, those are people who are not bullet points people. You have to give them basics and then give them more advanced stuff also. Because when you dive in, you love to dive in and know the information. You have more rounded eyebrows. So those rounded eyebrows, think about the people around them first and themselves second. So if you're trying to sell somebody and you're trying to, once you get this, you don't make it about the person with rounded eyebrows. You make it about the people they care about or take care of. So their friends, their family, their coworkers, depending on what you're talking about. You also have that high ears and low brows. So you understand things fast too. That's why we're having the ADD conversation that goes a little bit everywhere. Then strong jaw right here. So that is once you make up your mind, you like latch in. And then it's hard to get you to unlatch that. So I have to come with a lot of detail, especially since you have those Einstein lines across your forehead to get you to change that. This bump in your nose right here is called the feisty bump. That is nice guy until we back you into a corner, then it's not good. Right.
That's a great assessment right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually, and that bump came from a good fun story that maybe I'll share another day.
All right, there you go. And then you like me and Steve had rounded forehead. So if you turn to the side, then people can see you have a rounded forehead. Rounded forehead people are outside the box thinkers. You give them guardrails instead of SOPs. So standard operating procedure checklists are great for some people, not for rounded forehead people. And people don't get it because like, oh, no, that's the way you're born. No, again, those muscles in our face change over time. So I actually used to have a smaller chin and I couldn't handle criticism very well. Well, that's why we say take one on the chin, is the size of someone's chin tells you how do they handle criticism and adversity. If you're dealing with an employee or a loved one that's got a small chin and you get right to the pain point, they hear it like screaming. So you have to say something positive, then work your way to the negative, and then talk about how once that's addressed, things will be positive again. So learning all these things is, again, it's just learning, I know what I want to say, but how do I make it that you understand what I'm trying to say? And so Steve would always say in his book, like, you're responsible for both sides of the conversation. And he would say, was it be impossible to misunderstand? Part of that is changing your language from your default way of speaking to making sure it's heard by the receiving party.
That's great. Well, that's super cool, and thanks for taking the time to evaluate that. Somehow, I knew you had done the research ahead of time
Oh yeah.
and would have it prepared. And I think it's cool for listeners to hear how. And I would say that everything you said is very true about my personality and kind of how I present myself. And I would also say I'll have to go back and look at an old picture because I would imagine that my face has also changed like yours over the
Mhm.
years.
Yeah,
And
send me
so
send me
it's
one.
very normal.
Send me a picture of current and an older one, and we'll talk. We'll just I'll do the just like I did for that one picture, and like for Steve, I'll
Yeah.
just send you information back about it because that's what I always do. Is on when I go and I get brought in for these keynotes, like I'm speaking at one in St. Louis here in 2 weeks, and we're like, all right, who's going to be the guinea pig? And they give me the names. I go look them up on LinkedIn, and I just draw these arrows. I'm like, this is exactly how I'd sell you, and that people are like, you can see all that from the face. I'm like, yeah. And it's
That's
just
great.
learning again to make it about when you learn to get out of your own way. So I say when you learn to focus on the other person, learn to get out of the prison of your own mind and into the present moment. People can tell when you're having a conversation with them versus when you're just trying to sell them because you got commission breath or anything else.
Yeah, it's so true. That's that authenticity that I love. And I think this is a skill, subtle skill, if you will, that we could use in life to really make our relationships better, to make our business relationships better, and to
Mhm.
thrive in the world that we're living in. Brian, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah.
And I love that we got to honor Steve Sims on this as well.
Hmm.
It's always tough to lose someone that you that's helped your career or that you've admired and read about. And it's definitely the world was a better place with him, but it's been left behind much better because of him. So um,
100%.
super super great to have you here. And how can people find you so that
Sure.
they can learn more about this? That's what I want to make sure we finish with.
So what I did learn is Subtle Skills is a great name for a company, but nobody can spell subtle. So what I tell people is if you want to get the cheat sheet, go to getthecheatsheet.com and it'll take you to my website. I was amazed that was available, but it was. So yeah, just go to get the cheat sheet and then I'm
Got
going to
the
pop
cheat
up
sheet.
a QR code here too.
Yeah, and we can
That,
put this all in the show notes as well. So Brian,
yeah,
our team will connect with you and get the show. We'll make sure we have all the connections.
yeah.
And oh yeah, even better for YouTube.
Yeah,
This is
I
great.
put out video because this is a skill that changed my life, and I'm a product of the product who wants to see the product go on. And a little bit about my story is I was miserable in corporate America, and in 2019, I actually called my mentor. I'm like, Mac, and that's the guy who wrote the book. I'm like, Mac, I hate my job. I love what you teach. Can I teach this to other people? And his was called Amazing Facing. I said, but can I trade under my own name? He's like, absolutely. I want this skill to be there, and it's the same thing. We are more disconnected than we have ever been in our entire life from each other. And what we really need is a way to reconnect with people. I call it overcoming digital disconnect. And it's about how do we learn to talk and have conversations again? Because we don't check in with our friends, we check online and see what's going on. We're not creating relationships with people like we used to and we need to again.
Yeah, well, anything that can build more connection and connectivity in the
Hmm.
world is extremely important. I think it's also an AI killer. So for those of
Yes.
you that are concerned about your careers or your jobs being lost, this is something that is a skill that will live on. I've been in the financial space for 20 something years, and they said that financial advisors were going to go away because of the dot-com day of the $9, $1 trades, whatever it got
Hmm.
to. And then that didn't happen. And now AI is creating portfolios and building financial plans. And this is just the beginning. But you can't take away the connectivity of sitting and empathizing and understanding someone's situation and building something around that relationship. And we get less and less of that today. And so I tell all the teams that we advise and all the people that we work with how valuable that skill can be. And what you're teaching is additive. It's
Hmm.
only going to enhance everything that a relationship can bring to the table. If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.